Ethan Cole never imagined he would stand in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. The room was massive, shaped like a circle, with walls made of shining crystal that reflected the faces of alien leaders from dozens of worlds. They sat in tall chairs, their strange eyes and glowing skin watching him closely. Some whispered to each other in languages he could not understand, while others stared in silence. The air felt heavy, as if the whole galaxy was holding its breath. He had been brought here without warning. One moment, he was working on repairing a broken transport ship in the human colony, and the next, alien guards in silver armor had arrived, telling him the council demanded his presence. They didn't explain why, only that it was a matter of survival. Ethan thought they meant the survival of humanity, but he was wrong. It was much bigger than that. At the center of the chamber stood a tall alien woman with silver hair that shimmered like liquid metal. Her name was High Chancellor Serenia, and she was known for being strict, cold, and merciless. She raised her hand, and the hall went silent. "Ethan Cole," she said in a calm but sharp voice, "you have been chosen for a task unlike any other in history." Two figures stepped forward from behind her. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. They were alien sisters, beautiful in a way that didn't seem possible. Their skin was smooth and faintly luminous, their eyes deep with colors he couldn't name. The older one had hair like midnight waves, and the younger had short, bright silver hair that framed her delicate face. They wore long robes of pale silk that moved like water as they walked. "This is Lyra," the Chancellor said, pointing to the older sister. "And this is Naraya," she continued, nodding toward the younger. "They are among the last fertile females of their kind." Her words made the hall tense. These to carry the hope of their species' survival. Ethan frowned, confused. "Why are you telling me this?" Serenia's gaze turned sharper. "Because you, Ethan Cole, have been chosen to help repopulate a joint human-alien colony, and you will choose one of them." The words hit him like a strike. "One?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. The Chancellor nodded. "Only one. The other will be sent to another partner, as is our tradition." Ethan looked at Lyra and Naraya. Their faces were calm, but their eyes told a different story: fear, sadness, and something else. Desperation. It was like they were silently begging him for something. He didn't understand why, but he could feel it, and the thought of choosing between them felt wrong in his chest. The council members began murmuring again, some smiling, some shaking their heads. Ethan realized this was not just about survival. 'Twas politics, tradition, and control. If he agreed, his choice would shape the future of two species. If he refused, they might force him more worse. "Punish the sisters. Time is short," Serenia said, her voice cold. "You will make your choice now." The room grew quiet again. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. He looked at Lyra. Her dark eyes were steady, hiding strength beneath her calm. He looked at Nira. Her silver hair glowed faintly. Atia, and her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak but dared not. They were both so different, yet something about them felt connected, not just by blood, but by something deeper. He thought about the word choose. It was a trap, he realized. If he chose one, he would be condemning the other to an uncertain fate. If he refused to choose, he would be defying the most powerful council in the galaxy. A strange calm filled him. Ethan straightened his back, his voice firm but steady. "I will not choose one," he said. Gasps filled the chamber. Every alien I turned to him, some in shock, some in anger. "I will take both." The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "That is not our way," she said sharply. "It is mine," Ethan replied. Silence fell so deep that even the air seemed to freeze. Lyra's lips parted slightly in surprise, and Naraya's eyes widened for a moment. Ethan thought he saw relief in their faces, but the council's reaction was different. Dozens of voices burst into outrage. Guards stepped forward. "There Weapons gleaming, Serena raised her hand again, and the noise stopped. Her cold smile sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. "Very well, human," she said slowly. "You have made a dangerous choice. Let us see if you can survive it." The council chamber emptied slowly after Ethan's bold declaration. Some alien leaders left, shaking their heads, others whispering angrily. The guards surrounded him. Not as friends, but as silent watchers. Lyra and Naraya were led away through a separate door, their eyes flicking back to him. Until the last moment, Ethan knew the council would not forget his words. And neither would the sisters, hours later. Ethan was locked in a guest chamber, though it felt more like a prison cell. The walls were smooth and glowing, but there were no windows, only one door. Guarded by two silent alien soldiers, he paced, wondering if he had just signed his own death sentence. When the door opened, Ethan expected the Chancellor or more guards. Instead, Lyra slipped in, moving like a shadow, her robe trailing behind. The guard outside didn't stop her. Maybe she had been given permission. Or maybe she knew ways around the rules. "You should not have said that," she whispered, her voice calm but urgent. "They will make you prove yourself now. And the proving is never fair." Ethan crossed his arms. "I wasn't going to watch one of you get sent away like a piece of trade cargo." Her dark eyes softened for the first time. "You don't understand. It is not just that we are sisters. We are bonded twins." The words meant nothing to him. So she explained, in her species, some twins are born with a rare biological link sharing not just emotions, but life energy. If separated for more than a short time, one will weaken and die. The bond cannot be broken without killing both. It is rare. And dangerous, Lyra said. That is why they never told you if you had chosen one of us. The other would not survive long. Ethan felt his stomach twist, so they wanted me to choose. And then watch the other die, he said slowly. Lyra nodded, her eyes dark with years of silent pain. It is the Council's way of controlling bloodlines. We are valuable only for what our bodies can give them. Before he could reply, the door slid open again. This time, Naraya stepped in, her silver hair slightly messy as if she had been running. Her younger face held more open fear. They are watching us, she said in a hurried voice. They will not let us stay together without a fight. Ethan noticed the way she stayed close to Lyra, almost touching her shoulder. It wasn't just sisterly affectionate, was survival. They will try to break us apart. Naraya continued, and if they can't, they will put you through the trial of endurance. It is a game to them, but to us, it is life or death. Ethan's mind began to race. He thought about the guards, the Council's cold faces, the unspoken cruelty in their tradition. What happens in this trial? He asked. Lyra's voice dropped. They will drop us in a hostile world. Far from safety, no food, no shelter, no weapons except what we can make. If you survive 7 days, they will honor your claim. But they will make sure the challenge is nearly impossible. Naraya looked at him closely, as if weighing his strength. You are human, she said, and humans are unpredictable. That is why they fear you. Ethan gave a faint smile. Then maybe we should give them a reason to. The sisters exchanged a glance, silent communication that needed no words. Lyra stepped closer, her voice quiet but steady. If you truly mean to take us both, we will follow you. But you must understand, once we begin, there will be no turning back. If you fail, we all die. Ethan looked from one sister to the other. Lyra's calm strength, Naraya's fragile, yet fierce spirit. It wasn't a choice anymore. It was a promise. I don't fail, he said simply. A faint smile touched Naraya's lips, though fear still lingered in her eyes. Lyra inclined her head, accepting his words as truth. But before they could speak more, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. The door slid open wide, and High Chancellor Serena entered with 2 guards. "The trial begins at dawn," she said coldly. "You will have your chance to prove yourself. Pray that you survive it." The sisters moved instinctively closer to Ethan, their shoulders almost touching his. For the first time since he had entered this alien city, he felt a strange unity forming between them. They were 3 against the galaxy, and somehow that felt like enough. The night before the trial, Ethan could not sleep. The room the council had given him was quiet, but it felt like a cage. 2 guards stood outside the door, their shadows shifting under the dim crystal lights. He knew the trial was meant to break him, to push him into failure. But what bothered him more was the thought of Lyra and Naraya being forced into danger because of his choice. A soft knock at the side panel caught his attention. It wasn't the main door, it was a hidden panel near the wall. A small opening slid open, and Naraya's pale face appeared, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. "Come quickly," she whispered. "We don't have much time." Ethan hesitated only for a moment before slipping through. On the other side, a narrow tunnel stretched ahead, lit by faint blue strips of light along the floor. Lyra was waiting there, her robe tied tightly around her waist, her dark eyes sharp and alert. "This is one of the old maintenance routes," she explained in a low voice. "Few guards know it exists. If we reach the docking bay, we might escape before dawn." Ethan followed them through twisting passages, the air growing colder and damp. Every step echoed faintly, making him tense. Lyra moved quickly and confidently, while Naraya kept glancing back to make sure he was close. Ethan noticed how the sisters never strayed far from each other, their arms brushing from time to time as if the bond between them was a living thread. They turned a corner and froze. 2 alien guards stood at the end of the corridor. Speaking in low voices, Ethan pressed himself against the wall, motioning for the sisters to stay back. The guards began to move in their direction with no time to think. Ethan grabbed a loose pipe from the wall and yanked it free. As the first guard stepped close, Ethan swung the pipe, hitting him across the chest. The alien stumbled, giving Ethan just enough time to shove the second one into the wall. Lyra quickly used a strange handheld device from her robe, pressing it against the first guard's neck. The alien went limp instantly. "Stunner," she explained, tucking it back into her belt. They continued, moving faster now. The maintenance tunnel ended at a large hatch, which Lyra unlocked with a quick series of taps on a control pad. The door slid open, revealing the massive docking bay of the alien city. Dozens of ships were parked under the glow of suspended lights, their sleek designs unlike anything humans had built. Ethan's eyes locked on a small craft near the far side. It looked fast enough to outrun pursuit. But they weren't alone. A squad of armored guards was stationed near the ships, and one of them spotted movement. A sharp alarm began to blare, red lights flashing across the bay. "Run!" Naraya shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm. They sprinted toward the small craft, weaving between larger ships for cover. Blaster fire hissed past them, striking the metal floor and walls. Ethan ducked behind a cargo container, pulling the sisters with him. Lyra's eyes scanned the bay, calculating. "We can't just run straight to it. They'll cut us down," she said. Ethan thought for a moment, then spotted a hovering supply drone overhead. "If I can drop that on them, it might buy us a few seconds," he said. He climbed the side of a nearby loader, jumping onto a catwalk above the guards. Grabbing a loose power cable, he yanked it hard, sending the drone crashing down onto the floor below. The guards scattered, shouting in confusion. "Go!" Ethan yelled, leaping back down. They dashed toward the small craft, Naraya racing ahead to activate the boarding ramp. The engines hummed to life as she tapped the controls with quick, practiced movements. Lyra pulled Ethan aboard, sealing the hatch just as the first guard reached them. A blast hit the side of the ship, but the shields flared. Holding strong, Ethan slid into the pilot's seat, gripping the unfamiliar controls. "I've never flown one of these," he muttered. "Then, learn fast," Lyra replied, strapping in beside him. The docking bay doors began to close. Heavy and slow, Ethan pushed the throttle forward. The ship surged ahead, slipping through the narrowing gap outside. The alien city's spires glittered under the light of 2 moons, but Ethan didn't have time to admire it on the radar. Several ships were already giving chase. "They won't stop until we're dead or captured," Neriah warned. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we'll just have to make sure it's neither." The small craft dived toward the shadow of a massive canyon below. The alien pursuit ships followed, their weapons charging. The escape had only just begun. And Ethan knew this was no victory, yet only the start of a longer, deadlier game. The canyon winds howled around the small craft as Ethan pushed the ship lower. Jagged rock walls flashed past on both sides, their sharp edges lit by the pale moons above. Behind them, the alien pursuit ships still followed, their engines glowing like angry eyes in the dark. Neriah's hands gripped the edge of her seat, her silver hair whipping around her face from the ship's air vents. "They're gaining on us," she warned, her voice tense. Ethan kept his focus on the controls, the ship vibrating under the strain of its speed. "They want us alive," Lyra said calmly, watching the radar screen. "If they wanted us dead, they would have already fired to kill." Ethan glanced at her. "So they'll drag us back to the council." Lyra nodded once. "Yes. And that might be our only chance." The idea felt strange, but Ethan understood running forever wasn't a plan. Sooner or later, the small ship would be cornered. If they were going to survive, they needed to change the game. He banked the craft sharply, guiding it into a narrow tunnel that opened into a vast underground cavern. The enemy ships hesitated before following, wary of crashing into the tight space. That hesitation gave Ethan a few precious minutes. He turned to the sisters, his voice steady but urgent. "If they want to take us back, fine, we'll go, but I'm not going back as a prisoner. I'm going back with something to offer, something they can't just refuse." Lyra's eyes narrowed in thought. "What do you mean?" she asked. Ethan's gaze shifted between them. "The council values control, politics, and advantage. So I'll give them one if they let me take both of you. I'll lead a joint colony mission, not just for humans, but for your people too. One settlement, 2 species, equal leadership. They get political gain, we get freedom." Neriah frowned. "And if they refuse?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we make them see they can't afford to." Before they could discuss further, the radar lit up. The pursuing ships had found them. Blinding lights filled the cavern as the alien craft surrounded them. A sharp voice came over the comm. "Ethan Cole. Surrender immediately, or we will disable your vessel." Ethan exchanged a look with Lyra and Neriah, then lifted his hands from the controls. "All right," he said into the comm. "Take me to your leader. I have a bargain to make." The alien ships flanked them all the way back to the city. When they landed, armed guards formed a wall of bodies and weapons around them. The sisters stayed close to Ethan, their shoulders brushing against his. The High Chancellor Serenia waited at the end of the docking platform, her silver hair gleaming under the bright lights. Her cold eyes studied Ethan as the guards shoved him forward. "I see you failed to escape," she said, her voice carrying the faintest hint of amusement. Ethan stood tall, refusing to look beaten. "I didn't come back to beg," he said. "I came to offer you something." Serenia raised an eyebrow. "You have nothing to offer me." "Human." Ethan smiled faintly. "I have something you want more than control over. I have influence over the last bonded twins of your people. And I have a way to turn that into a victory for your council." The chamber fell silent at his words. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. Serenia's gaze flicked briefly toward Lyra and Neriah, Then back to Ethan. "Speak," she said simply. Ethan took a step forward, his voice firm. "Let me take both sisters, and I will lead a joint human-alien colony. It will be seen as a symbol of alliance, strength, and unity. Your people will praise your wisdom. The humans will see you as a trusted partner. You will gain influence over both species without bloodshed. And most importantly, you will keep the bloodline of the twins alive without public scandal." Serenia studied him in silence. The council members around her began whispering quickly to each other. Finally, she lifted her hand and the room fell quiet again. "You speak well, human," she said slowly, "but words are only as strong as the one who speaks them. If you truly believe you can protect both sisters, prove it." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "How?" Serenia's lips curved into a thin smile. "You will face the trial of endurance. 7 days in the most dangerous region of the galaxy. Survive with them, and I will grant your request. Fail, and all 3 of you will be removed from this world." The sisters stiffened at her words. Neraya's hand brushed against Ethan's, and he glanced at her. Seeing the fear she tried to hide, he looked back at Serenia without flinching. "Fine," he said. "But remember, you asked me to prove myself. When I survive, I'll expect you to keep your word." The Chancellor's smile widened slightly. "Prepare yourself, human. At dawn, your trial begins." The dawn came cold and pale over the alien city. Ethan stood on the platform of the council's launch bay, the wind tugging at his clothes. Lyra and Neraya stood beside him, both dressed in light survival gear, thin armor plates, high boots, and utility belts. Around them, the council members watched from tall balconies, their faces a mix of curiosity and expectation. High Chancellor Serenia stood at the highest point, her silver hair catching the morning light like a blade. A deep hum filled the air as a transport craft descended toward them. Its hull was scarred from years of use, and its engines roared with raw power. A guard stepped forward, holding out a small wrist device. "Tracker," he said flatly, fastening it to Ethan's arm. "It records your location, health, and fate." The cold metal locked in place, almost like a shackle. Neraya gave Ethan a small glance. Her lips pressed tightly. Lyra stood calm, but her dark eyes were sharp. She was reading every detail around them. The guard stepped back, and Serenia's voice echoed over the platform. "You will be dropped into the shattered wastes. 7 days, no outside aid. If you return alive, your demand will be honored. If not, the council will forget you ever existed." The transport doors hissed open, and the 3 of them stepped inside. The interior was bare, just a metal floor, a few handrails, and small crates bolted down. As the door sealed, Ethan felt the engines rise in pitch, the ship lifting into the pale sky. He glanced at the sisters. "You've been to the shattered wastes?" he asked. Lyra's tone was quiet but grim. "No one goes willingly. It's a dead zone, storms, predators, and no stable ground. It swallows people whole." Neraya shivered slightly, then forced a smile. "Guess we'll be the first to come back." Ethan gave her a short nod, though inside he knew this was no ordinary survival test, was a death sentence disguised as tradition. Hours later, the transport shook as it entered turbulent air. Through the narrow window, Ethan saw the wastes for the first time, endless, jagged black rock, rivers of glowing red magma, and skies swirling with toxic yellow clouds. Lightning arced from one storm front to another, striking the ground in flashes that left smoking craters. The ship descended sharply, dropping them near a cluster of twisted metal ruins, remnants of some long-forgotten crash. The moment they landed, the rear hatch opened, and a guard barked out. Ethan grabbed one of the crates before stepping down. Lyra took another, and Neraya followed. The moment their boots hit the ground, the transport lifted off and was gone, leaving them in the roaring wind. Ethan set the crate down and pried it. Open inside were only a few basic supplies: a water filter, a compact blade, a coil of cord, and a small energy lamp. That's it. Niraya asked, disbelief in her voice. That's it, Lyra confirmed. Already scanning the horizon, Ethan tied the cord around the crate and slung it over his shoulder. First rule of survival: don't waste time complaining. We need shelter. Before the storm hits, they moved quickly toward the shadow of the ruins. The air was heavy with heat from the magma flows, but the wind carried an acrid, choking smell. Ethan pulled a scarf over his mouth and handed the sisters strips of cloth from his bag. They climbed over broken beams and rusted panels until they found a sheltered space beneath part of a fallen structure. This will hold for now, Ethan said, but we'll need something better before night. Lyra crouched beside him, pointing to the horizon. There's a ridge. There higher ground, better visibility, but it's open, which means we'll be seen. Ethan weighed the options, then nodded. We'll risk it. The higher ground gives us a chance to see trouble before it finds us. They set off again. The ridge not far, but the terrain jagged and sharp. Halfway up, Nerea froze, her eyes wide. Something's moving, she whispered. From behind a boulder, a shape emerges low to the ground, armored in black plates, with glowing green eyes. It was as long as a transport vehicle, its claws digging into the rock. Ethan slowly drew the blade from his belt. Predator, Lyra confirmed, her voice tight. And it's hungry. The creature lunged without warning, its roar shaking the air. Ethan shoved Niraya aside and rolled to the left, slashing at its leg. The blade barely cut through the armor, but the creature hissed in pain, turning its attention toward him. Lyra grabbed a loose rock and hurled it at its head, buying Ethan a second to move. Niraya scrambled to the crate. Pulling out the energy lamp, she twisted it to its highest setting and aimed the blinding light at the beast. The predator shrieked, retreating a few steps before vanishing into the swirling dust. Ethan caught his breath, looking between the sisters. Good thinking, he said to Niraya. She gave a small smile. I told you I'm useful. Lyra simply nodded, though her eyes never left the shadows. That was just the first, she said. There will be more. As they reached the ridge, the views stretched for miles: shattered plains, rivers of lava, and in the far distance, a dark storm wall moving toward them. Ethan tightened his grip on the blade. 7 days here felt like an impossible number. But he wasn't going to let the council win. The second night in the shattered wastes was the worst yet. The storm that had been far away now roared overhead, lightning tearing across the sky. Rain fell in thick acidic drops that hissed when they hit the rocks. Ethan had used scraps from the ruins to make a crude shelter, but the wind still ripped through the gaps. Lyra and Niraya sat close together for warmth, their faces pale in the flickering glow of the energy lamp. Ethan stayed awake, watching the ridge below. The predator they had driven off earlier hadn't returned. But he knew others were out there. The sisters' survival depended on him staying alert. When he glanced at them, Lyra's eyes were open, watching him. You're not sleeping either, he said quietly. She shook her head. I can't. Not when I know this is more than just a trial. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Lyra leaned closer, her voice low so Niraya wouldn't wake. They aren't just testing your strength, they're trying to break you. The trial is designed to kill. But for you, it's worse. Someone on the council doesn't want you to return alive. Ethan's mind sharpened instantly. That's not just suspicion, is it? Lyra shook her head. I heard the guards before they brought us here. They said a council order went out to make sure the human doesn't pass. And they mentioned the name Counselor Varen. Ethan had seen Varen during the meeting. A tall, scarred alien with cold amber eyes. He had been one of the loudest voices against letting Ethan take both sisters. If he's pulling strings, that means this isn't just survivalized sabotage. Ethan said, Lyra's jaw tightened. Then we have to be ready for the final part of the trial, because it won't be what they promised. By dawn, the storm eased. Leaving the land slick and steaming, they pushed onward, using the ridge as a guide. Hours later, they reached a massive fissure splitting the ground in two. At the bottom lay an ancient alien structure, spires broken, its gates half buried in black sand. It looked older than the council itself. Neraya knelt at the edge, her eyes wide. This is from the First Age, before our people even joined the council. Ethan looked at her. What is it? Lyra answered, a guardian vault. The stories say these places hold ancient knowledge and ancient weapons. They climbed down. Carefully, the heat rising from the fissure making the air shimmer. The gates groaned as they pushed them open, revealing a vast hall lined with statues of alien warriors. At the center stood a tall figure made of metal and stone, its eyes glowing faintly. As they stepped inside, it moved. A deep voice filled the chamber. Identify yourselves. Ethan stepped forward. Ethan Cole, human. These are Lyra and Neraya. The Guardian's glowing eyes scanned them. You carry the bloodline of the bonded twins, it said, its voice like grinding rock. This place recognizes you and warns you your trial has been altered. One among your council seeks your death. Lyra and Neraya exchanged a glance, confirmation of their fears. Ethan tightened his grip on the blade at his side. Then tell me how to beat them, he said, the Guardian's head tilted slightly. To survive, you must reach the beacon atop the Spire of Winds before sunset. Activate it, and your victory will be recorded in the Council's archives. Fail, and their lies will bury you. As it spoke, the ground shook violently. Dust and shards of stone rained down from the ceiling. From the shadows, armored shapes emerged, their armor bearing the mark of the Council, Varen's private guards. They found us, Neraya breathed. Ethan moved instantly, pulling the sisters behind one of the statues. Blaster fire scorched the walls, sparks lighting up the dim hall. Lyra drew her stunner and fired at one of the guards, dropping him to the floor. Ethan charged another, slamming the blade into the weak joint at the back of the knee. The guard fell with a metallic grunt, but there were too many. The Guardian's eyes blazed brighter, and its voice boomed. Go. The spire lies beyond the eastern gate. I will hold them here without waiting. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled Neraya along, racing toward a narrow passage on the far side. They burst into the open air, the spire rising in the distance. Like a needle piercing the storm clouds, between them and the spire lay broken ground, boiling streams, and the growing shadows of more predators. Ethan's lungs burned, his legs ached, but he didn't slow. 7 days had felt impossible now. They had only hours, and this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about exposing the truth. The Spire of Winds rose above the shattered landscape, its black stone twisting high into the clouds. Every gust of wind howled through its broken edges, making it sound alive. Ethan, Lyra, and Neraya ran across the uneven ground, their boots slipping on wet rock. Behind them, the echo of pursuit grew louder. Varen's private guards were closing in. Above, lightning flashed in jagged arcs, the storm now swirling directly around the spire. We don't have much time, Lyra shouted over the roar of the wind. Neraya glanced back and saw the shapes of armored figures in the distance. There? Faster than we thought, she said, her voice sharp with fear. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then we climb faster. The base of the spire was a wall of slick stone. Ancient carvings ran along its surface, spiraling upward like a staircase carved by giants. They began to climb, using the rough edges as handholds. The wind battered them from all sides, trying to tear them free. Ethan pulled Neraya up when she slipped, and Lyra steadied Ethan when the wind nearly shoved him back. Halfway up, A blaster shot struck the rock beside them, sending shards flying. The guards had reached the base and were firing upward. Ethan yanked the sisters behind a jagged ledge for cover. "We can't fight them here," Lyra said, her voice low but urgent. Ethan scanned the cliff and spotted a narrow gap leading deeper into the spire's interior. "This way," he said, pulling them through. Inside was a winding tunnel lit by strange glowing crystals. The air was warmer here, and the winds. Roar was distant. The passage spiraled upward until they emerged near the top of the spire. A massive circular platform opened before them, and in the center stood the beacon-A ancient device shaped like a tall, thin pillar. With a glowing sphere at its peak, Ethan stepped toward it, but a voice stopped him. "Well done, human." Counselor Varen stepped from the shadows, his amber eyes glinting behind him. Two heavily armed guards blocked the only exit. "You've come far. But this is where your trial ends." Ethan moved to put himself between Varen and the sisters. "Why?" he demanded. Varen's smile was cold. "Because letting you succeed would make the Chancellor honor her word, and that would mean losing control over the twins. Their bond makes them dangerous together. They cannot be controlled, but apart. They are harmless." Naraya's voice shook with anger. "Apart, we die." Varen's eyes didn't even flicker. Exactly, Ethan's grip tightened on his blade. "You're not afraid of me," he said slowly. "You're afraid of what happens if humans and your people stand together." Varen's smile faded. "Stand together. And you make alliances I cannot control." The wind outside roared louder, lightning striking so close the platform shook. Varen took a step toward the beacon. "If you die here, the council will say the trial claimed you. The twins will be reassigned. And I will have no more interference." Ethan stepped in his way. "You want control," he said, his voice low. "Then control this." With a sudden move, he threw the blade at the nearest guard, hitting the weak joint in the armor. The guard dropped, and Ethan lunged for the second, grappling him toward the edge of the platform. The wind howled as they struggled, and with a final push, the second guard fell into the storm below. Varen snarled and drew a sleek alien weapon. But Lyra moved faster, firing her stunner. The bolt struck Varen, making him stumble. Naraya rushed forward, shoving him back with all her strength. He fell to one knee, his weapon skidding away across the stone. Ethan didn't waste the moment. He ran to the beacon and slammed his palm onto its control pad. The sphere flared to life, sending a beam of light high into the sky. Piercing the storm clouds, a deep chime echoed through the air. Carrying far beyond the wastes, the trial's completion had been recorded, and the council would know it. Varen's eyes widened in fury, but he knew it was over. Guards from the council's official trial observers arrived moments later. Surrounding him, Lyra stepped to Ethan's side, her hand brushing his arm. "You did it?" she said softly. Naraya smiled, though her eyes were bright with relief. "We all did." Hours later, back in the council chamber, the Chancellor stood before the gathered leaders. "The beacon has been lit," she announced, "by our own law. The trial has been passed." Her gaze moved to Ethan, Lyra, and Naraya. "The humans' request will be honored. They will leave together." Ethan met her eyes, holding her stare. He knew she was not happy, but she was bound by her own rules. The sisters stood on either side of him, their hands finding his. As they turned to leave, Naraya whispered, "You didn't just save us, Ethan. You gave us a future." Outside, the ship awaited, ready to take them away from the council's reach. For the first time in days, Ethan breathed deeply. The wastes were behind them, but the road ahead was their own to choose, and he had chosen both.